Peace and welcome, everyone. You are listening to Habibah's Life Lessons podcast, hosted by me, Habibah. This is a faith inspired podcast that focuses on topics relating to self improvement, growth, and making an impact. It's a podcast for everyone striving to level up your life with God in mind. Thank you for being here. So, today's topic I'm really interested in talking about because I believe this is an experience that people have on an individual level, and this is an experience that the society is currently experiencing. And this is the reality of being by oneself. And myself speaking, of course, had so many experiences where I've been alone, and I'm going to talk more about it as we go on in this podcast. But I wanted to mention that you listening, you've had experiences with being by yourself. And I think that the definition of the reality of being alone is going to differ from person to person, right? For example, you listen to one person talk about being alone and they are unhappy. They are very sad. They feel very bad about themselves. They have negative self-talk, and you realize that that person is experiencing extreme loneliness or just simply loneliness. And then you hear another person talking about their alone time and the time they spend alone, and you're hearing them talk about an opportunity to reset, an opportunity to refresh, an opportunity to restart. It is a time where they want to spend by themselves. They are going to block it in their schedule. Everyone who knows them knows that they want that time, whether it's out of the day, out of the week, out of the month, or sometimes even a getaway trip or vacation outside of their community, just so they can have that alone time. And you see that to them, that's an amazing time worth longing for. And then if you compare the lonely person to the person who can't even wait to be by themselves, you realize that the experience and the reality of being alone is very different, and from both parties, honestly. So the reason why this is also important to talk about, regardless of the two differences in people is just that the first one is the more common one, which is loneliness. The loneliness epidemic that we're currently facing in society is very sad, because you see a lot of older people that are very miserable alone. But that was in the past. Now, a lot of younger people, even with all our devices, the resources, and also opportunities for unlimited connections, a lot of the younger generation are also miserable. And now you see that the reality is we have a problem, a major problem. Now, before we go on to keep talking about this, I want to talk about my experience when I was back in college in Pennsylvania. I was the only Black Muslim girl in the entire school for the entire time I was in university. It was a predominantly white institution, so it was very unique. And I remember that during Thanksgiving break, fall break, spring break, every single of those times, there were many of those times every single semester, like every single break, besides of course the winter and the summer break, I always went back home. But I always stayed in the dorms, and when I tell you the dorms felt empty, I'm not lying. A lot of people were from Pittsburgh, and they just used to drive from Cypress Rock, which was where my university was, and they would go back and forth, and they were fine, honestly. But then there was me, and the first day I loved it because I'm like, oh my gosh, no half drunk people in the dorms, no stress. This weekend is great. I'm enjoying this break. And the first 2 days, I would just be in my room, watching a lot of YouTube or just resting, right? And being like a chemistry major, that was also an opportunity to actually rest. Like, I wouldn't necessarily focus on any assignments or any exams, any studying. I would just simply rest. But then the third day it became boring. It became so boring. And then the fourth day is like, oh my gosh, when is everyone getting back? And then the fifth day, I realized, dang, I have to get my assignment done. But like the day before or 2 days before, I start getting work done and I start to become productive. And I realized that the issue I was experiencing is that because I've always been in like an institution, or I've always been guided on what to do, there are certain human experiences that no one really guides anyone to do. Like an example is how to navigate your life when you're by yourself. There's no real guidance that maybe the school teaches you, or sometimes even parents, of course, don't teach their kids. And subhanallah, like it's so interesting because I realized that the reason why I was miserable is because I never planned anything interesting for myself. I just thought whenever I felt burnt out and I was lucky enough to have time, is just what was the time for me to just rest, which makes sense, right? But the issue is, if you're not scheduling your alone time, or you're not properly organizing it, even when you have it, you can be alone and still feel burnt out. You can still feel terrible, and you can also end up hating it. And I realized the first 2 days were resting days. They were not necessarily alone time. I was kind of forced to have it, have that alone time. And then the other days after those days were just loneliness and sadness. And then the last day was like rush to be productive because school starts Monday, or school starts another day. That's what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to mention that if you have the experience like I have, or I had while I was in college, it's not a big deal, honestly, because it's just a natural struggle everyone faces. You end up realizing that the reason why you struggle with it is because everyone was dictating your time. Boss dictates your time, except if you are someone who like communicates effectively and has a good boss. But like work dictates your time. Different family commitments will end up dictating your time, and it'll be very difficult for you as you grow older if you're not developing it, so that there'll be a point in your time in your life where at least it's a part of you. So if you're 50 years old, 80 years old listening to this, I think that it's still possible to be able to like manage your time. So I wanted to mention that part of the reason why a lot of people don't even think about like alone time is because we have a lot of societal disapproval when people do things by themselves. There is the belief that if you're doing anything by yourself, you're for sure lonely, which is not necessarily the case, because there are people who have enjoyed that time by themselves. Now, thinking of a moral story from my religion, Islam, we know the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Prophet Muhammad, he used to isolate himself in a particular cave just to think and just to reflect, away from his family, away from where people can easily see him, and far enough that people knew where he was, but he didn't have like consistent contact with people. And the value you get from that is, it's important for you to be able to reminisce and think about your life and just reflect and try to see how you can grow. Because as much as it's good to like spend time with people, there are certain things about life where you would need to experience alone, and there is growth that you would need to have by yourself. That doesn't mean you can have people, but there's a part of you that should be looking forward to understanding yourself better, working by yourself. Because even sometimes when you have people there with you, it will be very difficult if they don't really know the person, and you yourself don't know the person that you're trying to work with. If you don't know yourself, how can somebody else who only can understand you through communication and observation fully understand you to help you out if you have a problem? So that's one thing too. It's wise for you not to try to get alone time when you're burnt out. Of course, if you're doing that after you find out that you need alone time, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's sad when people make your life that way. But thinking about it, it's just important that you know that like at some point in your life you're gonna be alone. Experiences would force people to be alone, and it's better for you to already have that mechanism, so if a situation were to arise, you'll be able to manage by yourself. So we have to understand that as human beings, as much as we are similar, we are also very unique. Like, we're alone with our thoughts. That's how God created us. We are alone with our fantasies, our imaginations, our emotions. We're alone with our responses to life experiences. We're alone in our choices. That's why everyone has a choice to either do something or not do something. So even if you're in a country with 1 billion people, everybody is still alone within themselves. That's why people talk about the importance of communication in relationships, because your husband or your best friend cannot know what you're thinking if you don't communicate. That in of itself should teach you that there's a part of you that really no one knows, and just that reality tells you that, subhanallah, that you're alone in a way. Not lonely, but you're alone. So we're all alone in even answering our choices to God, and we're just all alone. But one thing I wanted to mention is we now have to understand that since the reality is not going anywhere, the reality of being alone, we have to be able to know the difference. And going back to the first two people I talked about, the person who is experiencing loneliness because they're alone, and the person who can look forward to, who can't wait to be alone because you're looking forward to reset, to restart, to refresh. Now, I want to mention the two differences, right? Someone who is lonely or experiencing loneliness actually dislikes the reality of being by themselves. They're not happy being alone. You're not happy that there isn't someone that they can um do something with. They're experiencing a lot of sadness with that. And being alone for a person like that is not a choice. It feels more like a punishment. Like, oh my gosh, I was forced. Like, you remember COVID, how a lot of couples ended up divorcing, or some people had major mental health struggles because they are so used to being around people that the absence of people made it extremely difficult. Of course, people are different. Human beings are very complex. So I'm not saying just being by yourself was enough to make people feel sad. I'm just saying that because people are so used to being with other people, the pandemic made it so difficult because people were forced to take that alone time that felt more like a punishment rather than a choice or an opportunity to grow. Now, the second person, which I would call positively solo, not necessarily lonely, positively solo, is someone who is looking forward to being alone. They consider it an opportunity. When you meet someone like that, you realize that they consider it an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for productivity. So it is absolutely important for us to try and strive to be that second person, to be in that second category. So I wanted to mention that as much as being alone is a good thing and being in social gathering is a good thing, both of them would need to be in balance. And I think that balance would range, would vary actually from person to person. There actually is goodness in the both of them. So it's for you to find that balance and try to make sure that you are striving in your alone time, and you are living a positively solo life, and you are also striving or thriving in your alone time. And sorry, I'm confused. What I'm trying to say, there's good in both. So you are thriving in your alone time, and you are living a good positively solo life, as well as you are thriving in social settings, and you're actually a good person to be around, and you actually enjoy the connections and the experiences that you have with other people. Now that we're done with this intro, let's go to the practices and then the benefits. I wish you guys all the very best, and please keep an open mind as you listen more. So we're going to be starting the practices that you need to develop in your alone time to be successful. So the first one, everyone who is starting this process has to understand, because this is a faith inspired podcast, is the importance of reconnecting with God. Your alone time should not just be a time where you are sad that and you feel lonely. It is a time where you actually strive to reconnect with your creator. The way I think about this is I think about every single thing that's happened in the day, especially at night. Thankful about how my day went. Thankful about the things that fell into my life, and thankful about the things that did not fall or went away from my life. And the way I think about it is also when you think about information that you get on the news and you hear someone saying, "Oh, I was supposed to book that flight, but I missed my flight." And then you hear in the news that there was a plane crash and no one survived. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is what someone was protected from. When you reflect, you see the importance of God in your life. You see the importance of having a connection beyond human beings. And I'm saying this particularly because many times when people think about God or think about or reflect or think about your life in general is whenever a situation happens that is out of your control. That's when you'll be like, oh, let me start fixing things. Let's do damage control when you can actively put practices in your life where you do it regardless of how you feel, regardless of whether you're happy, regardless of whether you're sad. You just know to do it, so you do it. You don't wait for a bad situation to happen before you think, oh, maybe I should be doing this, or maybe I should be improving this, or maybe I should be fixing this. This is the reason why you need alone time. This is the reason why your alone time has to be scheduled as whether a daily practice, bi-weekly practice, a weekly practice, or monthly practice. There has to be some form of um some form of reconnection to the greater version of yourself, and you cannot have that without God. That's the reason why I believe that the people who are strongest are the people who see the value of things regardless of their circumstances, see the value of God and having a relationship and a connection with God regardless of their circumstance. It does not matter whether they're happy, they're sad, they're healthy, or they're sick. That mentality of understanding the fact that one way or the other, we are all alone. Even when we're with people, we're alone. We're alone with our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, and no one would feel you and understand you. Sometimes not even your closest friends, like God. So reconnecting with God is so important. If you don't know how to do this, you can start by just thanking Him about thanking Him for how your day went, telling him like, oh, I felt you in this particular moment of the day, writing things down, having a journal where it's just you and God, and how that can be some level of intimacy between both of you. And this is like with your thoughts, with your emotions, and things like that. Now I wanted to mention for people who already practice this, you can now move on to like a higher level where you tell God how much you love Him, you glorify Him, you are grateful for Him, you're unhappy when you do things that you know that God wouldn't approve of, and you strive to the best of your ability to reach a level of excellence. For Muslims, that's called ihsan with God. Now, I also wanted to mention that if you're Muslim listening to this podcast, then you know that when I say reconnect with God, it's not just one thing you have to do. You can reconnect with God through Quran, listening to it, reading it, reflecting from whatever you've learned from it, reading the meaning and the deep understanding of like the nature of when certain verses were revealed, applying it to your life. These are all practices. Doing your dhikr in your remembrance of God, glorifying Him, praising Him, um, mentioning His perfection. These are just ways where you can highlight the attributes. Now, if you're still here and you did not quit, the next one is reconnecting with yourself. I'm saying this as a good practice because a lot of people thrive in social settings, but they struggle with settings where, though they struggle to be alone, they struggle to be by themselves with their thoughts and with their emotions, and it's something so difficult. And whenever you're having this practice your alone time, you have to be positive. You have to have a positive outlook in how you're handling things. You don't want a situation where you're unhappy and your thoughts are filled with negativity. That's not good when you're alone. Your alone time should be
devoid of negativity. You should fight it within yourself to really think positive thoughts. And when you're reconnecting with yourself, you need to talk about the good things. Now, this does not mean you ignore the bad things, but you talk about the good things and you talk about the bad things with hope. You talk about the good things with happiness, with pride, with appreciation, and with gratitude. Now, when you reconnect with yourself, you can do this by journaling. You can talk about whether you want to, depending on how deeply you want to go, you can go talk about it vaguely. You can talk about it deeply, especially if you're starting, you might want to talk about it on a more superficial level, comparison to someone who's been doing this for a long time. This will involve you speaking about it, maybe to a recording device and replaying it for memories. It could involve you just thinking, looking for a corner that is quiet and just thinking. I know some people who just like stare into the abyss and they think, and it's not dangerous if what you're thinking is good thoughts. So if you're not the speaking type, then you can be quiet. But if you're not also the speaking type and if you're not the quiet type, you can also write. Writing is beautiful. It's very therapeutic. I do it with journaling. And even sometimes, even if you're not writing, you can type things out. You can see how much of your life you can put down either in words and you can see on paper. So, but of course, it depends on person to person. So, whatever works for you, and you can try to reconnect yourself daily. I think Salat, the prayer, the Muslim prayer, the 5 daily prayer is a good reconnection with yourself and reconnection with God in a very spiritual and very beautiful level, especially when you've dedicated a portion of your time in understanding the best way to pray. So, another thing I wanted to say is when you speak with yourself about your achievements and you're talking about with appreciation, gratitude, and even sometimes pride, like a little bit of pride where you're happy, not a pride that you're looking down on anyone, but a pride where you're like, "Ah, I'm so thankful, I'm so proud of myself, you know." Now, the other one I wanted to say, besides highlighting achievements and talking about difficulties with hope, is the very common one where people ignore, which is honestly thinking about your life whenever things are just indifferent. There's nothing interesting, there's nothing bad. It's just bland, it's mid, it's just midway. You have to think about this and talk about this and reconnect with yourself in stages like that with lots and lots of gratitude and contentment. Life does not have to either be in one extreme or another extreme. Sometimes it's just the middle ground. It's just the part where you're just content, you're just thankful, and you're just moving on. Not everything has to be great. And that's the reason why a lot of people struggle with being by themselves too. Struggle with that alone time because they always want some action, whether it's positive or negative. Sometimes you don't need any action. You just can just be calm and you can be content. And even as I'm speaking to you, I still struggle with this a lot. It is something you have to have a conscious effort and you have to be very intentional about being content. So the next one is planning and reviewing your vision board. I don't know what you'll be doing or what you're doing with your life if you don't have a vision board. And I don't look at vision boards as just something you write somewhere, which is good because sometimes you can write your goals. But if you're really good with writing your goals and looking at them frequently, then that's great. But for some of us that tend to forget, I think that actually making a vision board and putting it at the side of your room or somewhere that you're going to frequently go to, it is the best approach to success, honestly, whenever you want to be reminded about your goals and why it's important for you to achieve them. It will teach you the importance of being more disciplined because if you're being lazy and you're scrolling on your phone, the next thing you know is, oops, I just looked at my vision board. I'm not putting the effort I'm trying to put in just so I can go for Umrah or to buy a car or do something else. Like you need to be able to see your goals and feel bad if you're not achieving them. And the best way you can see that frequently and force you to be disciplined and not procrastinate if that goal is staring you in the face. If you're not being serious, it's staring you in the face. Now, for those people who already have vision board, it's also important for you to review it frequently. And the review is just for you to basically look at it, but not just look at it, but to sit down and then just look at what you've achieved, what you haven't achieved. Is a great reminder about how you want the next phase of your life to be. And I know this is the beginning of 2024, so many people are on this whole vision board goals, this, that. Please don't put it somewhere that you're not gonna even look. Put it in a place where you're gonna see it every single day. It will teach you to look at your goals frequently. It will teach you about the importance of changing habits for the better. It's going to give you an opportunity to review yourself, look at the goals that you're actively trying to achieve, be thankful for the goals you already achieved, and be proud of yourself. It also teaches you the importance of flexibility, meaning, oh my gosh, it's not working this way. Maybe I should be flexible with this goal, or maybe I should be flexible not with the goal, but with how to approach succeeding and going by passing the goal with success. Now, one thing you need to know is when you're working with a vision board, please put it beside a calendar or have a calendar on your phone whenever you're working with your vision board so that you're not saying, I'm going to buy a car in 2024, but you're not saying, I'm going to buy a car in 2024 by June or by March. Instead of having that, you can say 2024. 2024 could be 31st of December. You need to put those things in time frame chunks so that if you're being lazy, you can quickly catch yourself rather than just say you're going to achieve something and then you don't. And you just assume you're going to, and then you don't achieve it, and then you feel disappointed in what you did not like achieve. So working on the calendar is very important because you can actively see how much of what you're doing. So this will also help you for those people, especially who want to save money, who have like traveling goals, who have like family planning goals and things like that. Now, the fourth practice you can do is for you to work on your responsibilities, chores, and duties. If your house is always a mess or if your area is always a mess, it is very important for you to value cleaning up, and a good time to do is during your alone time. You should not be hanging out with friends or in social places if there are things about you within your home that needs fixing. If there are chores and responsibilities and duties you need to do, you should not be pushing those things that are necessary, not that things you could do, maybe not. No. Things that are necessary like cleaning up. You shouldn't be pushing it to the side and ignoring a valuable time for you to get things done. And the best time sometimes for people who like to clean and who like to reorganize is simply when they're alone. So try to look at responsibilities, chores, duties that you've been putting off and do it during your alone time. This could also involve not just cleaning up, but like paying bills, doing a life project, cooking. An example of this common one is cooking. Like people who like their free time during the week will pick a time out of their week, maybe for about 3 4 hours, and they will make like four different meals and they would like pack them up and do like a meal prep for a whole week. The good thing about working on your responsibilities during your alone time, because it creates more freedom for you to practice more alone time during the week. But if you're ignoring them, then it piles up, and then one day when you're stressed out, what you really need to do is you're not going to be practicing alone time. You're going to be forced to do a chore rather than doing something you could have already scheduled so you have more freedom to do other things that interest you during the week, during the month, or whenever things that you're supposed to have done are due or should have been due. So that's really it. Working on responsibilities. I mentioned life project. Life project is just like a thing you want to do in life that you would hope to continue even after your death. And this could be like volunteering, is sub teaching and things like that. And sometimes it doesn't require you going out. It could be you making sandwiches in your home and then walking down the street and giving it to like 3 4 homeless people that you see every time when you're going to work, and you can do those sandwiches on your own time, like simple projects like that. Some of them require it when you're alive, some of them require it would be something you would do after you're dead. Of course, you can't make sandwiches when you're dead, but like if you decide to keep on doing this and you get other people interested in it and you guys start an organization that feeds homeless people, then this is a life project you've done. But because you used your alone time in a productive manner by starting something like making sandwiches, that is why the life project can continue. People don't know the value of their time until they're using it effectively, honestly. Now, the fifth one is to engage in hobbies that require the absence of technology. Now, if you heard everything I've said here has been very closely related to things you can do at home or things you can do in the absence of technology. This is very, very important. In this world where we cannot do without scrolling, this modern era where everyone is almost dumber by the day, I cannot mention how important it is for you to be able to disengage from your phones. And myself, I'm struggling with it honestly. So it's not like as if I'm telling you what to do and I've gotten it right. No, I haven't gotten it right. I'm still trying to get it right every single day. It's a struggle. So absence of technology, other things you can do. So if you're not using your phones or if you're not going out of the house, you can learn to read more, look for a skill, listen to a podcast. When I say absence of technology, it could also be minimal technology. It doesn't have to be like a complete absence because even reading, sometimes people don't read books, but they have like reading devices that they have on their phone, or they just have like, I know Amazon has this very common one, I've forgotten the name of it, and people just read. And it's also an opportunity to practice skills that naturally come to you, like writing. Some people are really good writers, but they never got a chance to develop it because they were only exposed to academic writing rather than free writing where they can write your thoughts. They can on a blog. These are times where you can do things like this. So if you have a full-time job and you're enjoying your alone time, it's not going to be anything wrong. It's not something wrong for you to start writing and just post to blogs like a month. Like things like this you can do. If you're someone who's been using your time uselessly, you're not going to value it even when you're free. That's the bad thing about it. Or if you're someone who's always working or burnt out and you don't have any activities or hobbies outside of your normal required schedule, you find it very difficult to be able to do things outside. And and not just outside, but outside with very minimum technology or minimal technology, and just or sometimes even a complete absence. Like you can learn how to publicly speak. You can learn public speaking basically. You can learn art. You can do more exercises. You can play board games. You can do games that will help you improve your IQ. You can do games where it's just you and your computer, or it's just you and your puzzles where you can like work on jigsaw puzzles and you can be happy, or you can work with Lego, stuff like that. These are things you can do in your alone time. It will boost your creativity. You will make you trust yourself more, and may make you more confident in your abilities and in your skills. Sometimes it will involve you just adding more skills, maybe going online and looking for like free resources for you to learn coding or something that you has always interested you and you've never really done. So that's why I'm not talking about alone time where you just sit down and reset. I'm talking about alone time where you get to be productive. You get to come out a better person before you came. And wallahi, I swear, all these things are good because one way or the other, you'll be put in a situation where you become more intentional with your time when it's not your alone time. So you know the people you're not supposed to hang around because they are not adding value to you. You know the people that you're supposed to avoid because they tend to gossip. You tend to value your time it, in the absence of these kinds of individuals because you already know how much of benefit that you are having when you're by yourself. So that is the reason why you can't just be alone with negative thoughts, negative energy, and doing stupid things that are not beneficial to you. You need to have practices that are valuable at that time. The last one I'm going to talk about is self reflect on purpose of your life, and you should also learn in this process to pray for yourself. So for self-reflection, I know I've talked about reconnecting with God, reconnecting with yourself, and all of these things require some level of self-reflection. But this particular sixth practice is not just a moment or a day-to-day life. This is one that, in fact, this particular practice you can schedule maybe once every 2 weeks. It may not be something you do every day, but this one is like a deeper one where you think about your life as a whole. Like me, Habibah, where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Who do I want to be at that moment? Because there's a difference between activities you're doing in comparison to a mindset shift where you're a completely different person, a better version of yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, for example, I'm reflecting on my destiny. Why do I have the life that I have? Why was I given the parents I was given? Why do I have the husband I have? Why do I have the job? Does this interest me? What can I use? How can I use what interests me to better society, to better myself, to better people I care about, my loved ones? I would reflect on my growth. Okay, 5 years ago, I used to be this kind of person. How have I grown in 5 years? What have I learned in 5 years? Am I still at the same place I was last year? Like, these are things where you're not just going to think, like, anything about your life at all. So you're not just thinking about your career in this case. You're not just thinking about your family. You're thinking about your death. You're thinking about your legacy. This is where you would grow the most because you've put your life, yourself, and your life in such a humble manner that you lay it out. And then you see the parts that you really don't like that you need to improve. And you see the parts that you like and you want to continue. It's like a number line. You just lay it flat. And then you see your life, you see your attributes, the things that are like, okay, I like this, and things like that I really do not like. And then you just look at life in that way. So the last part of it that I said was pray for yourself. I'm not sure if you've been listening so far, if everyone who's listening to this is a Muslim or believes in God. But when you pray, you have to learn to pray so deeply that you can see goodness and hope, even if your situation is very far from it. You can see and you can feel success for yourself. That you're not going to be thinking about your life poorly. You're not going to be thinking about your success poorly, but you're going to be thinking about it with hope. You're going to learn to pray for yourself, pray for your existence, pray for your generation, pray for your intelligence, your vision, your health. Pray for the way you carry yourself. There should be sessions in everyone's life where they just pray. Pray, pray, pray. Pray for themselves. This is the real definition of self love, that even when things are so difficult, you can still hope and you can still be on your journey of self discovery and more, where you hope that the byproduct of all your struggles is something good. Some of these things you can tell people. You can tell your mom, you can tell your dad, you can tell people who are closest to you, but you know it. You can tell God all these things and you can pray. Pray so much so that even the ones that you're unsure would happen, you just pray regardless. And you pray for a beautiful life, you pray for a beautiful end. And if you're Muslim or you're one of those, yeah, if you're Muslim, you pray for an afterlife, because we Muslims do not believe life starts and ends here. We just believe one phase of our life is this world, the other phase is in heaven, and it is in Jannah, and it is forever, and it doesn't have an end. So you have to pray for your life, your existence. I don't even want to say your life anymore, because life has an end date, but you say for an existence means even when your soul carries on, you're still praying for that part of you. So hopefully this has been very helpful. These are like practices you can start. All the practices you've heard are the ones you can do in the house. You're technology free. That's just it. I'm not gonna be here telling you to ski, to go hiking. I'm gonna making another episode where I talk about activities you can do by yourself and they are outdoorsy, like maybe camping in a very safe place and things like that. But this particular video is for people who are starting and people who are very comfortable at home, as well as people who are comfortable or who are trying to be comfortable with using very little technology or not using any technology at all. Because I do believe that alone time can be spent quietly without any form of interruption, without any major activity, um, and without something that has to be done outdoors or with technology. So now, some of the benefits of being productive when you're alone is: number one, you learn to do things independently at your own pace. This way, when you're doing things independently, that would involve you not having any distractions, not having any opinions or pressures from other people. At your own pace will be that you will never be in a hurry. You just try your possibles and get things done, and just um that teaches you to be more confident, right? Like you're confident. You don't need any form of external validation. You don't need anyone to taste your food and tell you it's good before you know it's good. You don't need anyone to tell you how things should be done. You're so confident. This does not mean you cannot collect. This does not mean you cannot get feedback or criticism, positive criticism or constructive criticism. I'm saying that it just teaches you much more confidence, because people are always doing things in groups, struggle when you're alone to even get the simplest thing done without interactions from other people. That's one. Number two is learn more about your interests, and it teaches you plan in your life direction. An example of this is when you're doing your vision boards, when you're reconnecting with God, it gives you an opportunity to plan your life direction. But learning about your interests would be like those hobbies I talked about, or those chores that I talked about, or your duties. You see the parts of it that interests you, and the part of it that you're like, okay, I guess I'm just doing it because it's my responsibility. So when you start to know your interests, that's when you can even fix more time. This interest will help you, you can be of benefit in the way that maybe you like art, and now maybe you can go to art shows and be around people who like art. Like things like that is what I mean by like your interest. The third benefit is you reflect on relationship actions and your growth over time. This is looking at your big picture, like your relationships. How your relationships been? What are they looking like into the future? Like, are you comfortable with relationships you have? You think about maybe good qualities you have that you want to continue. Look at bad qualities you have that other people who don't know each other have all said about you, and work on those things because they're very important. And also, you look at your growth over time. It causes you to reflect, basically. So the benefits of that is that you try to be a more intentional person with your actions and with your relationships, and you are have an open-minded perspective towards your self-growth. The first one is the benefit is basically you being more observant about your surroundings. You become aware of, okay, since now I'm not getting distracted by people, and my brains are not doing 50, 60 billion things at the same time, and I can just be grounded and be calm in a corner. You realize that you can be more observant about your surroundings. Oh, okay, I didn't realize that I have this food in the fridge for like 3 months. Maybe I should make it, maybe I should throw it out, stuff like that. You just become more observant. You even learn about how you write, if maybe that's what you're looking at. You learn about more about your hobbies, you learn more about yourself, and learn about not just yourself, but like things around you, how things are, and things like that. That This fourth one leads into the fifth one, which is you become more organized and intentional about your life and action. Because you're more observant, maybe you're not organizing your room properly, but because you're sitting with yourself with no technology, with no distractions from people, with no unnecessary social activity, you become organized, and you're like, okay, what can I do with this free time I have? Let me organize, let me be more intentional. And this way, even when you go back out with people, you're aware of what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, because you're more intentional and you have a way of doing things that are the best way for you. And hopefully you also learn the importance of communicating. That hopefully I'm going to be making um an episode on communication. Now, not the last one, the next one, which is the sixth one, is you don't feel lonely, because now you value your time alone and you learn the importance of scheduling it. This benefit is good because I can't tell you how many times I've heard the story of an elderly couple who've been married for 50, 60 years, and then you hear one of them dies, and then 2 days later, a week later, a month later, 2 months later, the second one dies. They're experiencing loneliness. Loneliness. There are going to be times where you're going to be put in a situation where you have to be lonely, especially in days like this, in times like this where people are migrating frequently and are moving to different parts of the world to better themselves. People are being forced to adjust. We had the lockdown. People were forced to be adjusted. Sorry, people were forced to adjust because honestly, it's sad when you can't be alone, because when you're forced to be alone, you become lonely because you're so used to social activity, you don't know how to be by yourself. That's a bad thing for you to actually always need someone by you 24/7, and you cannot sit alone. But of course, if you're listening to this podcast, then you're trying to fix it. So don't take this personally. But the benefit of it is you don't feel lonely. You value your time. You look for things to do, things that interest you. And even when you don't want to do your alone time in the house, nothing stops you from looking for stuff you can do outside. So that's just what I'm trying to say. So when you're this particular way will cause you to basically, since you're not lonely, you even look forward to it. You tend to schedule it. You can get excited, get yourself in the mood. Like, oh my gosh, my alone time is coming. Let me go to Walmart. Let me go to like some other store, and let me just go buy food. Or I'm gonna try a new recipe that I saw online. I'm excited to do it. That's basically how it works. You value your alone time and you schedule it and you get things done. And one good thing about this is you always have to strive to put it in your schedule and try to put what you would want to do in your alone time in your schedule. Now, the next one is you benefits by engaging in consistent self development, self focus, and this will also improve your creativity. Because you're alone, you're gonna see some of your faults that maybe absence of other people, sorry, in the presence of other people can cloud your judgment. But if you realize that when you're living alone, your house is always a mess and no one is messing it up, that is a direct information that you already have that you need to be cleaner, like things like that. It also helps with self focus in the sense that you tend to be more focused on yourself. That's the benefit. So even in a situation where you may get distracted outside publicly, because you know how to sit with yourself, it would teach your brain frequently, or you teach your brain on how you can focus even when there's a lot of energy externally, because you've done your alone time frequently enough that you can also get yourself into the zone and comfort, or into a core where you're not as disturbed. So that's it. Self focus is also a good thing. And lastly, to improve your creativity, because you have absence of distractions, opinions, and things like that, you tend to explore your abilities in a very different way. Now, the very last one, which is number eight, is your self esteem receives a boost because you learn to celebrate yourself and existence. This one is perfect because since there's no one around you and you're just alone, you would not need the validation. That's how beautiful this one is. You've reconnected with yourself. More importantly, you've reconnected with God. Your self-esteem would receive a boost no matter what. You become more confident about yourself. You have some level of beautiful contentment. You are happy that you exist because, oh my gosh, even though there is no one right here, I can be okay. Like, this is the mentality people should have. This does not mean you remove people from your life, but it just means that you you're okay and you're content if certain things are not the way that majority of people who enjoy social activities do. Like, you become that person where if someone decides, oh, I can come over, you're not terrible, you're not broken. This is the point I'm trying. When someone decides to leave you because it's no longer working out, you're not broken. When failures or difficulties happen in your life or social activities make you unhappy, you're not broken. You're not resentful, you're not unhappy. You know yourself, you're content with yourself, you know your interests, you know your abilities, you know how God views you. Oh, sorry, you know how you're connecting with God and how you hope God views you. you know yourself and you strive and you're working towards your self improvement, you're doing your responsibilities, you're engaging in hobbies, you are doing so much more than um an average person is doing with your time. You're not in a situation where your thoughts and your belief about yourself is poor because of the practices you've been doing in your alone time has made you an independent thinker, one who craves connection with God. It teaches you the importance of the balance between social activities and solitary activities. And then you come out as a person who has beautiful contentment. You don't have a void you don't have a void that needs to be filled externally. You know how you can have that internally. So hopefully this podcast has been great. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you follow. If you're watching it on other um, platforms or the podcast platform, Spotify, and the rest. So make sure you guys subscribe, and make sure if you have any questions, you should put it in the comment section, and make sure you give this video a like and tell me what you want to see next. And my advice to you, if you're about to start your alone time because you're burnt out, is when you start, please do not stop when things are easier for you. My advice is for anyone who is at the depths of terrible situation and you're struggling with hope, please think about your life with hope. Alone time is not a time for you to be ruminating about your failures, about your happiness. It's an opportunity for you to reset, to refresh, to restart, and to have hope that even if you may be delayed in comparison to maybe your peers, that does not mean you would not be able to go far with the right mindset and you trust in God in the process. I wish you guys all the very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.